Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. We'll be with you in just one. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of our Golf News webinars. These have been so successful over the past couple of weeks, and we are looking forward to having another successful webinar for you later on. Well, coming up today. Later on, we're going to be having our guest joining us. Our guest is Clint, the Director of Y-Axis Middle East. We'll get to him very soon, but today what we're going to be doing is talking about the topic of immigration. And thank you for everyone who has registered. To get the best possible viewing and to get your messages in, the best thing you can do is turn off your VPN. That is the very best thing for you to do in order for you to have the best connection. However, international immigration has been the hot topic for many residents across the UAE, with many consultancies overwhelmed with the interest of resettling for people here in the UAE. Canada is fast becoming one of the most popular destinations for UAE residents, as it welcomed the most number of immigrants to any other country in the world in 2018. Now, today, the latest Golf News webinar is going to focus on immigration, following on from the success of those previous webinars we had on education and employability. And it's not hard to see why. Canada is a beautiful country. It's got a great standard of living, ranking above average in housing, personal security, medical systems, work life, the whole thing, balance in education. After hearing the stories about Canada, you're going to wonder why you haven't been there earlier. And joining us today to talk about this and how best you can get a head start and get some tips and tricks to get your application and your job hunt working. Joining us is Clint, the Director of Y-Axis Middle East. Clint, thank you very much for joining us on another Golf News webinar.
Thank you, Kitch. It's my pleasure.
This is going to be interesting because I've looked at the brochures and the documentaries in Canada. My auntie is Canadian. She's always spoken about how amazing the country is. But leaving Canada aside for the moment, what is it about migration? Why do people exactly feel the need to migrate from one country to another?
You know, Kitch, migration is like, if I ask you a question about why do people save money? And automatically people save money for a rainy day, people save money for the future, they don't know what's coming, or they can't really predict what's going to happen. That's how migration is. Largely a lot of people want to actually keep their migration plans just so that they have another country in mind, they have opportunities to look forward to in different countries. Some people are in the situation where they have to leave immediately and they don't really want to go back to their home country. Whereas some people want to actually move maybe after a couple of years. And, it's best to apply when you're eligible rather than when you're ready, because the rules are not going to always be the same. So I think a lot of people want to actually migrate, considering countries like Canada, and they're very migrant-friendly nation. They've, in fact, already announced that they're going to take in nearly 1 million people by 2022. And there's a huge requirement of migrants there. And I think that's why people would like to migrate.
Clint, you made a very interesting point there, and that is you've got to have everything ready for when the opportunity arises, not when you're ready to migrate. I mean, I think we're seeing a lot of redundancies in the UAE, which is happening all around the world. So you're going to have people trying to get all their paperwork together, but it's about being ready for that opportunity of when the window is open for you to move to Canada, not when you think you're ready. Looking at those the benefits, compared to the UAE, what are the benefits of migrating to Canada?
UAE has their own benefits. Canada is different. Canada offers you a permanent, the visa that we are talking about, the permanent residency visa. It's called a federal skilled worker visa. And it gives you a permanent residency, which basically means you can live and work in Canada full-time without any restrictions. So for us, people who are in the UAE or the GCC, they need an employer to sponsor you to actually work in the UAE. Whereas on a permanent residency in Canada, husband and wife, all of them can work full-time without any restrictions. They don't need a sponsor to actually sponsor them. In addition to that, children get free education. So you can, your child studies there for free. You can sponsor family members in Canada. One of the biggest advantages is that it's a 5-year visa. And after staying there for at least 3 years, you can convert it to a citizenship, and a lot of people want that as an option. They don't really want to go back home. and they'd like to convert it to a citizenship. One of the biggest advantages, I think, for people mainly in the UAE is that because right now we are happy with what we are doing right now. Our situation is good. We have a tax-free income. Everything's going well here. But, for the Canadian permanent residency, if you want to convert, extend your visa, out of the 5 years, if you stay there for at least 730 days, which is 2 years, you can convert your permanent residency. So what they're actually investing in is their future 3 years from now. You don't know what situation you're going to be in. So if you have a permanent residency, at least you have a backup in place.
And the country do want to see that, because it's an opportunity where the company can see, well, they've lived within our country and our rules for 2 years, and they've been a productive part of society, and then that leads you into having that citizenship, which opens up doors. Canada is one of the most highly regarded countries. So then when the opportunity comes through, you're wanting to travel further and having better education and better opportunities for your kids, that's there. One of the differences I think that you touched on is that here, for anyone who's come to the UAE, your visa is attached to your job.
That's true.
And if you're going through the economic conditions which many people are facing and you lose your job, you're also losing your visa. That's not the same with Canada. You essentially have a visa with the government. It's not tied to one particular position, is it?
That's true. You're not really tied to anything. You can own a permanent residency. You can either choose to study. You can either choose to do a business. You can choose to work with any employer you want. You can work with multiple employers based on your situation. Or you can, if you have all the money in the world, you can be unemployed and sitting at home. You still have, I think that's...
Well, there's worse places to do it, Clint, because Canada is a stunning country. I mentioned before that my auntie is Canadian, and she's always saying the Rocky Mountains are just extraordinary. The train rides that people do are beautiful. I've got friends that go skiing there all the time. And the quality of life that people have, we mentioned in some of the reports that went on Gulf News, that they're above the worldwide average in terms of social and community support. So the idea that you go into Canada, you are going to, backed by the stats, a friendly place that you and your children and your family can grow up and start a life.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fantastic opportunity for so many. So when you look at some of those benefits, the schooling is an excellent one. We know how expensive schooling can be, certainly here in the UAE, and you touched on it. So even as a permanent residency, before you've got the full citizenship, the schooling is still included, that universal schooling and healthcare.
That's true. You don't really pay like a foreign student. When we actually go as a foreign student, you're paying maybe 10 times more than what a normal person actually pays. Okay. And for children to get free schooling, then that's I think, a great opportunity.
Now, the question I think most people want to know is, how am I going to be eligible? What do I need to do to get into Canada? So what are the eligibility criteria for anyone today that is thinking of moving to Canada?
So there is an eligibility criteria, unfortunately, to get all the benefits, but there are actually 3 eligibility criteria. One, your occupation should be in demand in Canada. So what they've actually done is they've put about 30,000 different occupations. They've made it into separate groups. They have a group called 0, A, B, C, and D. And out of all these groups, they've assigned about 348 occupations. And they've said these are the 3 groups that we need people in. It's occupation code, like it's a group 0, which is mainly management roles and restaurant managers, engineering managers. Then they have a group A, which is doctors, dentists, and those kind of profile. And then they have group B, which is mainly chefs and administrative officers. In total, there are about 348 occupations which are in demand. And
wow.
If, for you to meet the first requirement is your occupation has to be in demand in Canada, which means you have to look at the roles and responsibilities. You have to check if you've performed those roles and responsibilities, and then you meet the first requirement. And the second requirement is your education has to be assessed. Your foreign education, whatever you've done, has to be assessed by a Canadian organization, which, to tell you if it's equivalent to a Canadian degree or not. And so they have about 7 different assessing authorities, and they look at your education, the year of pass out, your percentage, and they tell you whether it's equivalent to a Canadian degree or not.
Now, just going back on that first point about the occupation. So you said there's some 380 careers and occupations, 348. Where is the best place to get a list of those? Can they contact you? Is there a place where you can get a full list of all those jobs?
Yeah, what normally happens is when someone gets in touch with us, they send us their CV, the latest CV. We try and identify which occupation we think that they fit into, and then send them a list of roles and responsibilities. It's
Okay.
actually difficult for us to judge because we don't do the role. For example, there's a social worker. I don't know the roles of a social worker. So when we actually send them a sample roles and responsibilities, then they read it and they confirm whether they've performed the role or not for them to meet the first requirement.
Okay, excellent. That's fantastic. So when you're looking at the second one, you said there, education should be equivalent to a Canadian degree. So if you've worked and you're a dentist, you need to look out that your, the bachelor degree that you have is of the same standard for the same qualification in Canada.
Exactly. So your education, you have all over the world, they have bachelor's, master's, they PhD or a diploma. That's the first stage of your application actually. Your education has to be assessed by an authority and they confirm whether it's equivalent to a Canadian degree or not. And worst case scenario, it's not equivalent and you don't meet the requirement, then you don't qualify.
Okay. So simple. And lastly, the points-based system. Now, we put up a poll currently on the website. So thank you very much for the votes. The question, and this is what gets to the points-based system, Clint, what is the major roadblock in your migration journey? And the vast majority of people voting are saying understanding the process. So what we're doing here with Clint, this morning is trying to give you better advice on how to understand that process. And of those 3 steps, that last one we're talking about is this points-based system. So how many points do you need based on your qualifications in order to get through? How does this work?
So what basically happens is, I know a lot of people must be in that situation right now because every time you talk to someone and you talk about, am I eligible? What's the eligibility criteria? And everyone talks about the points-based system. But people sometimes forget that it's the first 2 requirements as well. Your occupation has to be in demand, your education has to be assessed, and third is a points-based system. So you have a total of 100 points. And for you to qualify, you have to meet at least 67 points to actually meet the requirement. Now it's broken up in different categories. It's age, qualification, experience, whether you're married or not, your spouse's skills, and language as well, where you need to do an English language test a couple of months later after starting the application. And so that's how it is. Mostly, from my experience, someone who's between 25 to 35 years old, someone who has maybe 3 to 5 years of work experience and a bachelor's degree, then 99% of them meet the points-based system. But the issue is about identifying an occupation, whether they are eligible or not, do they perform the roles or not, and that's something not in our control. We can only identify occupations and give it to them, and then they need to read the roles and responsibility and decide whether, yes, I'm performing the role or no, I'm not performing the role.
Are you aware of which roles in Canada for jobs may be in more demand than others? Are certain jobs going to give you more of a chance to get through than other positions?
Not really. What happens under the federal skilled worker category? It's the federal government who's selecting people from the list, and they have about 348 occupations. So I think a lot of people are, a lot of occupations are in demand in that country. Later, during the course of our conversation, you'll get to know that when it comes to provincial nominations, at that time you'll realize that a lot of provinces are selecting people based on occupation. But if it's the federal government's selection, it's based on just their age, qualification, and it's a points-based system.
Because in a lot of Western countries, I do even know from my experience in Australia, and I think Canada's having the same problem, there is a big shortage of certain doctors and dentists in regional areas. So you're trying to say that in some of the smaller provinces, certain positions may be in greater demand. If you are not looking, you don't want to move to Montreal, you don't want to move to the bigger cities, but if you want to move further out, you might have a better chance given your industry.
That's true. Each and every province has a different requirement, and they start selecting people from the list. And the good thing is provinces select people based on occupation. And, that's what they do. But the federal government is selecting people based on a points-based system.
One of those points-based systems is language. Now, Canada speaks 2 languages. They speak English and French. Are you required to do both, or can you do one or the other?
You can just do one. I think English gets you the maximum number of points, which is 24. And for someone who knows French and who can do an examination and pass an examination in French, then they get additional points. But if you're meeting the requirement with only English, then I think most people, that's what they do.
Okay, okay. And everyone else is just showing off that they can speak two languages very well when they go to Canada. So we work through this. So you're thinking to yourself, I want to move to Canada. I want to move my partner and kids and so forth. Now, if I am eligible, so just say my job as a restaurant manager is eligible for me to get this permanent residency in Canada, and then I meet the eligibility criteria, does it then mean I will automatically get the permanent residency, or is there maybe a bit of a delay? What's the exact process?
Yeah, so what normally happens is once you know you've met the three eligibility criteria of your occupation being in demand, your education is assessed equivalent to a Canadian degree, and the points-based system, you enter into a pool of candidates, which is called the express entry. And you enter into a pool of candidates. As soon as you enter into the pool of candidates, at the moment, there are about 142,000 people in the pool right now.
Okay.
And they've just been waiting to get selected. And when you enter into a pool of candidates, you are assigned with a score. It's based on age, qualification, experience. They have something called a comprehensive ranking system, which is basically an internal ranking system of how Canada selects people from the list, of candidates. And you're assigned with a score. Now, an average person gets a score of around 300 or 350 approximately. When this started in 2015, the maximum a person can score is about 1,200 points, in this comprehensive ranking score. And when it started in 2015, they started selecting people at a score of around 886, because at that time, people who had job offers, people who were invited from provinces, they used to get a bonus of 600 points, And every fortnight you keep having a draw, and it keeps coming down. The most recent draw is at 478, And so while you're sitting in the pool, by meeting these three requirements, it doesn't really mean that you will 100% be successful with your application. You'll be sitting in the pool waiting for the draw to come down and for you to get selected as and when it comes down below your mark. But at the moment, yes, there are about 142,000 people in the pool right now.
So just to clarify, for anyone who's maybe just joining in the webinar, who's just coming in to speak to us, we're currently speaking with Clint from Y-Access, and we're talking to you about how what is the best way to migrate to Canada. And we've been discussing about the eligibility criteria. Clint, you spoke about how, first of all, your occupation needs to be in demand, and there are three categories upon that, the skill type, both 0, A and B. You then need to have your education be equivalent to that Canadian degree, and lastly, the points-based system. And what you just said there is, okay, so I look at it and they need restaurant managers, and my qualification is equal to that of a Canadian. That's great, and I meet the points-based system based on my qualification and experience, and I pass the English language test. So what you're saying is then you need to be alongside everyone else who has passed those three criteria. You then have the comprehensive ranking system broken into those different sections. And for everyone who is waiting in that pool, what is the average waiting time? Are there different intakes across the year? Do certain people, are they looked upon more favourably if they've applied more than once?
No, what normally happens is you can enter into the pool and you can keep waiting for the draw to come, for your cutoff to come down. They normally have a draw every fortnight, sometimes once in a month. And, if in the next 1 year you don't get selected, your profile expires and you have to redo and update your profile once again. And every year you pass, you're losing out points. You're dropping some points or the other. And so there's no time frame. You can be waiting for ages. If you're just going to be sitting in that pool and, your score is about 300, you're going to be sitting in the pool for ages, and there's no real guarantee that you will get an invitation to apply.
Is there anywhere online for people to assess whether their qualifications, if they've studied, they've done their degrees in India or they've done their degrees overseas, where's the best place to find out if their degree or their qualification is on par with those in Canada?
They actually have 7 different assessing authorities. Now, a lot of people, the reason why a lot of people approach us, like immigration agents like us, is because each and every assessing authority has a different processing time. They have different documentation that's required. They have different fees involved, right? And some can give you a result within 2 days. Some can take up to 6 days. 6 months. And so that's why a lot of people, it's very difficult to, from the top of our head, to tell you, yeah, this is the right assessing authority. But a responsible immigration agent, I think, would first look at their education, look at their year of pass out, the percentage, the country that they've actually studied in, and then they'll be able to tell them which is the right authority that you actually apply to.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, if one of the questions, if my CRS score is around 350, but then the cutoff, as he said, is 478, should you still apply? Is that still a good option?
I can't tell you if that's a good option, but yeah, if your CRS score is about 350 and you know that your score is 350 and you're waiting for it to come down, I normally I tell people to go into the pool and wait for an invite. One, because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, right? Mm-hmm. And because you never know when the draw is going to come down. No one really knows that. So I can't really tell you if it's going to come down in this month or the next. Or the other thing is, I know a lot of clients don't want to be in the pool because if your score is 350, there are about 62,000 people who are more than the score of 400. They're sitting into the pool right now between the score of 4 to 500 or 400 above. So there are 62,000 people who are sitting ahead of you, so they most probably get an invite. But what we normally do is we do different things to actually increase your chance of success. So while you're actually waiting in the pool of candidates and you're waiting to get an invitation, there is another separate applications that we do to increase your chance of success, which comes under the Provincial nomination program, where what we initially do is you add your application to a job bank in Canada. What Canada has done, the government of Canada, they've introduced a job bank, which is managed by the government of Canada. And so potential employers, if they're looking to take someone from overseas, they start selecting people from the job bank. In fact, last year, there were about 100,000 people who got jobs from the job bank. And so if you do get a job offer from a Canadian employer and they do a labor market impact assessment, you get between 50 points to 200 bonus points with your CRS. And that's what increases your CRS, So what we normally tell people, while you're waiting in the pool, we first add your application to a job bank and make sure that you apply for as many jobs as possible. There's obviously no guarantee that you will get a job, but you just need to keep applying as much as possible. And in addition to that, there are different provinces in Canada, 10 different provinces who have their own immigration program, So, for example, there's the Prince Edward Island. There is a province which is open right now and people can apply. There's Saskatchewan. There's one province in Canada where, for example, they have their eligibility criteria says, we have a list of occupations that are in demand. If your occupation is in demand, apply to us. In fact, in September, they had only 19 occupations that were in demand, and they've increased it to 218 occupations because they need more skilled workers. So there are different provinces. Like, for example, Manitoba has one of the eligibility criteria where if you have a family or a friend in Manitoba, you can apply to our province, and then we'll decide.
And that is so important for people who do migrate to have someone they know to help integrate into the community to make this a success, which is a big part of that process. I'm getting excited about this. What do radio personalities and media personalities? Can I get a good score on the CRS? Do you think any jobs for me over there somewhere, Clint?
I'm sure there are jobs for you there, but you just have to get into the pool. Make sure you get into the pool, and even if you don't get an invitation, then we do different things to increase your chance of success, Like, for example, provinces like Ontario, New Brunswick, and Nova Scotia, these provinces, a lot of people want to move there. But what they don't realize is you can't really apply for these provinces. They select you from the pool. So they look at the number of candidates in the pool. They look at the occupations that are in demand in their province, and they start selecting you from the pool. I know a lot of immigration agents who tell people that we will prioritize your application to these kind of pool, but that's not true. That's not genuine, really. These are some provinces where they select you from the pool of candidates.
So you really need to be prepared that if you have your heart set on going to Montreal, you're probably going to have a better chance if you are thinking about moving to a regional area. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, that's right. I think a lot of provinces are now selecting people from the list. I think from the express entry candidate. In fact, last month we've had between this and last month, we've had about 5 different provinces who selected people from the pool. So a lot of provinces are depending on this. When this started in 2015, there were about 31,000 invitations that were issued, for people who were migrating to Canada. In 2017, when the provinces started selecting people, it increased to 85,000 invites, from
It's huge.
31,000 to 85,000. Last year, in fact, was about 81,000 invitations that they've issued. And most of these invitations have come from provinces in Canada. And each and every province has their own eligibility criteria, that they
Okay,
apply.
so that's one of the best reasons why anyone should really get in contact with Y-Axis Middle East, because there is the broad, general, nationwide government policies, but also you mentioned there is that rural and northern immigration pilot where certain communities are saying, yeah, I know we need actually certain skilled labour here, different from the rest of the country. So if you are looking at being one of those skilled foreign workers and you do want to live in one of those participating communities, is it best to, contact, Y-Axis Middle East? Can you find, is that the best place to go to looking for an employer who can maybe give you a job offer in that instance?
Normally, what we do, we are immigration consultants. A lot of people think that it's very easy to find a job. Now, what we normally do is we build up their immigration application to get them into the pool, make sure they get into the pool, and then simultaneously start applying for which provinces are open and eligible to apply. Now, they have different programs, which is the Rural and Northern Immigration Program and the Atlantic Immigration Program. And these programs are specially designed for people to actually apply for jobs. Now, a lot of migration agents, if you've spoken to a few, you'll realize that a lot of them talk to you about this program, and they tell you that they'll help you with the Rural and Northern Immigration Program or the AIPP program. These are pilot programs which Canada started. But honestly, I don't know what a role anyone can play in getting you a job. No one can actually guarantee you a job. We can give you links where you can actually look at jobs, you can start applying for jobs and things like that. So normally my personal thing is, as soon as someone tells you that, yes, I'll guarantee you a job, I don't know how genuine it is going to be.
Yes, beware of everyone who's over-promising the dream of going to Canada. Just beware. Only speak to the professionals. So, if you're just joining the webinar this afternoon, thank you very much. My name is Lachlan Kitchen. We're here continuing our successful series of webinars with Golf News. Today, we're speaking with Clint, who is the director of Y-Axis Middle East, and we're discussing migrating to Canada. Just an extraordinarily beautiful country. It's got some of the most natural beauty. It is the great outdoors in the summer months. People love the lifestyle. It's one of the safest countries, and the visas are attached to the country, not one particular job. And you have the opportunity for great healthcare for you, for your family, free education, and the opportunity to sponsor your family and extended family to come out to Canada. So there really is so much upside in terms of wanting to move to Canada. So once we've heard all this, I know we've gone through the scores and the roles and everything, and I know that can be a lot for a lot of people to sort of take in on that first instance. To break it down to basics, Clint, for anyone who is interested in moving to Canada, what do you advise is the very first step?
I think the first step that they actually have to check their options, their eligibility criteria. Are they meeting the requirement? That's what I think a genuine immigration consultant should do, is tell them whether give them a document which tells them how they're meeting the requirement, whether their education is equivalent to a Canadian degree, whether they have an occupation which is in demand, and give them a list of roles and responsibilities. Let the client decide themselves whether they are performing those roles and responsibilities or not, and when they meet the points-based system. After which, tell them clearly what their options are, what kind of roadblocks we see, what are their chances of success, how much of, how long they plan to actually sit in the pool, whether they actually, are eligible or not. I think that's the first step. And if someone's eligible, I think the next most important thing is to apply and enter into the pool of candidates, because every single day there's people who are applying from all over the world, and I think that's the next step, if you're eligible.
We've just put a poll up online. Thank you to everyone who has registered and is watching us this afternoon. We'll get to the answer soon, but the question we want to ask you, are you aware of the professions that help you get a leg up in the Canadian immigration process? Are you aware of the professions that help you get a leg up in the Canadian immigration process? Have a vote on our poll, and we'll get back to you with the answers to that very soon. I'm pretty sure I know what the answer is going to be, overwhelmingly, but it would be cool to get some more of your thoughts. One of the best ways, well, it is the best way in order to move to a beautiful, beautiful country like Canada, is choosing a reliable and a genuine immigration consultant. Now, you spoke for yourself there, Clint, that as soon as someone is promising you the world, they say, sure, we can get you this great job. It's going to be everything you dreamed of. You're going to be in Montreal, a couple of hours out of New York City, great place looking the water. I think we all know that you should be moving on to someone else because they're not giving you the true story. So how should we find a genuine immigration consultant?
I normally tell people that if someone tells you something that's too good to be true, it is too good to be true, and I think that's what it is. But yeah, with a migration agent, it's pretty straightforward. Any country that you actually deal with, you have regulated Canadian immigration consultants. So you go into they're legally authorized representatives, people in good standing with the authority, with the Canadian authority. And you go to the official website and you check for the person's name. If the company, now a lot of companies in the UAE, one is, I think the first things first is check if they have an immigration license. If their trade license tells you that they are an immigration company, but most people don't. The second thing is you choose a regulated Canadian immigration consultant because they have a code of conduct. They have an authority you can complain to if there is some issue, and a lot of consultants, I think, all over the world, they are not regulated themselves, but they have partners who are regulated. So you're actually paying someone who is not a regulated consultant, who's not going to be responsible for your application, whereas the person sitting in Canada is responsible for your application. So the company that you're paying should be regulated, and their name should be on the RCIC website. I think use someone common sense, who has who's done thousands of applications, been in the business for 15, 20 years in the business. Because remember, you're not getting a CRS score of about 550 to 700. You're getting a score which is less than 400 or 350 or 400. So the immigration agent has to do much, much more to increase your chance of success, to actually have the knowledge of things. Small little things which I tell people is that use a consultant whose calls are recorded, because tomorrow, if there's a dispute, then you're obviously going to, you'll at least be able to pick up a call recording. And things like that.
It's a fair point. My grandfather used to say it to me, if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. Yeah. So just bear in mind, if someone's giving you that balanced view and they're being honest with you about how great Canada can be, but also, look, you've got to get through these things in order to have this life that you want for your family, then you're probably on the best point. So if we just want to get some more of your votes that are coming in, the poll has been put up online. Are you aware of the professions that help you get a leg up in the Canadian immigration process? Overwhelmingly, the answer is no at 54%. Now, but interestingly, 29% have said a little bit, but I would like to learn some more. So the best way to find those professions is really contacting your immigration specialist, isn't it?
One is doing that, I think, and the most that I could, like, for example, I can tell you now, there was, a lot of IT professionals who got selected in the draw on July 29th from Ontario. And so there are a lot of IT professionals which are in demand. Alberta needs a lot of teachers in demand. But, as much as I can tell you what happened in the previous draws, I can't tell you what's going to happen in the future draws, right? So the best bet would be to actually enter in the pool, irrespective of your occupation, because they need about 348 occupations are in demand in Canada right now. So I think that's what they should do. But IT is always in demand. Teachers are in demand. The nurses are in demand in Canada. And these are a lot of invitations have been coming in the recent past for these occupations.
What about pilots and people working in the airline industry? We've seen that really been affected here in the Middle East. Do you have any advice for anyone who works in that industry who might be looking to move to Canada?
What normally happens is professions like these, like pilots or or even a doctor or a pharmacist or something like those kind of occupations, they can't really actually work in Canada as a pilot as soon as they get their permanent residency. Yes, okay. You can apply for it. You go ahead. meet all the requirements. If you get your invitation, actually move to Canada, and then you do your examination to become, your pilot license, or a doctor's license, or a registration as a nurse, and things like that. So a lot of people, I think, are applying, moving there, but they can't actually work in that profession immediately. They'll have to work in other professions while they do their examination. But that's why a lot of selections happen for people from IT, engineers, construction managers, hospitality, chefs, and those kind of profile, because they can just go there and work instantly. They can add to the economy immediately.
Well, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. My name's Lachlan Kitchen, and we're speaking to Clint Khan, who is the director of Y-Axis Middle East, and we're talking about immigration to Canada and what is the best way to get a leg up in the process. We've spoken about the importance of finding a reliable and a genuine immigration consultant, but can you maybe tell us a little bit more about Y-Axis Middle East and what is predominantly it is about you and what you do that might separate you from the others?
We are basically licensed to represent immigration applications to Canada. So my team basically does the documentation to represent clients' applications. So when the authorities actually get your application, they know it's Y-Axis who's representing you, not someone else. So we are bound by a code of conduct to make sure that we give genuine, legal, truthful advice. We've been in the business for about 20 years now, 21 years now, from 1999. We have about 45 offices around the world. We have 1,100 staff only within us. So I don't know of another immigration company who has 1,100 staff. No. And, we deal with thousands of different applications for many different countries. What we normally do is we use even our technology. During this pandemic, we didn't get affected at all, thankfully, because we use the kind of technology that we use. We use Salesforce as our CRM, salesforce.com as our CRM, 3CX for our calls, our technology, and things like that. We use Whitebird as our training, as our IT partner. So we've done everything. So anywhere in the world, wherever my consultants sit, they are able to take client calls and deliver what they've promised. I think that's what's most important with thing. The other thing that we are registration partners with British Council. So clients register for their English language test with us directly, and we make sure everything is taken care of for them. So I think that really, that's what Y-Axis does. We do a lot of, immigration applications throughout the world, and, as compared to the other inexperienced consultants.
So to put it simply, you know what you're doing. That's the best way to put it. You know exactly what you're doing if you're looking to migrate to somewhere else. If you'd like to get a question in, we'd love to hear from you. Clint would love to answer some of your questions. The best thing we can also ask for you is to turn off your VPN if you're using one of those. That is the best way to get access to the live stream. Just some questions while we get to some of the questions of you listening. When it comes to the point system, is there an age that's looked more favourably on other ages? Do they want people when they're 25? If you're 40 years old, do you have more of a chance, or does it really still just come down to your job?
It actually, age is a factor. There's no doubt about it, because it's based on age, qualification, experience, and language for you to meet the 67 points. But for someone who's, for example, anyone between the age of 18 and 35, they get the maximum number of points, which is 12, And as and when it keeps, the score keeps going down. And, when you're 36, you get 11 points. When you're 46, you get 1 point, So you actually have to compensate. To meet the 67 points, you'll have to compensate on education and your work experience and things like that. So if I have someone, for example, who's 47 years old and they tell me that I have a bachelor's degree and I have no experience at all, then most likely he's not really going to meet the points-based system. He's not going to meet the entire criteria. So it's based on everything else. There's no really age criteria. Like Australia, for example, has an age criteria of 45, whereas Canada doesn't.
I'd also be asking someone if they came into my office, Clint, if you're 47 and you have a bachelor's degree with no experience, what have you been doing for 25 years? There must be some sort of experience there that would make it up. We've asked you another poll here, and we want to get more of your thoughts on this one. Are you well versed with Canada's points-based system for immigration? Are you well versed with Canada's points-based system for immigration? And that key number we're looking for is 67, isn't it, Clint? So when we've gone through those criterias of your occupation being in demand, your education being equivalent to that of one in Canada, 67 is that main number that you want to help people with.
That's true. Just to give people an idea of what the points is like, it's based on age, qualification, experience. So with age, anyone between 18 and 35, they get maximum points, which is 12. And if you have a bachelor's degree, you get 21 points, provided, remember, this is not, I just want to give you a disclaimer that this is not legal advice. I don't know the applicant's profile, so this is just general information
It's
that
just
I'm
very general experience, yes.
Yeah. And so anyone with a bachelor's degree, if it's equivalent to a Canadian degree, you get 21, or a master's degree, you get 23. If they have about 6 years of work experience in that occupation in demand list, then they get about 15 points, which is the maximum. And if they're married, sometimes you're lucky if you're married, because if you're married and you have a spouse, she can add 5 points to your application list.
Okay.
So that's one option.
That's interesting, because I would have thought that if you're married, it's someone else that's going to be reliant on more Canadian services with healthcare and so forth, and it may look as a burden. But no, you're actually saying that can help you with points.
That can add 5 points to your application as well if you're married. And then you need to do an English language test a couple of months later after you finish the first stage of your application, where you can score about 24 points in language. So normally, like I said, someone with a bachelor's degree, 5-6 years experience, 32, 33, 34 years old, they meet the requirement normally. So
on average, what is the timeline? I mean, if I make a booking to come and see Y-Axis Middle East on Sunday, and I have that initial consultation, that I'm a restaurant manager and I want to move to Canada, realistically, what has been your experience? Again, when we know this is sort of I'm looking for averages here, between that first consultation, how long is it, do you think, before someone could achieve their residency visa?
So what normally happens is, as soon as someone comes in, initially it takes a day or two just for us to get their documents, check their eligibility options, check if they're eligible or not, give them a detailed documented proof, a report, which tells them how they're eligible, why we think they're eligible, or why we think they're not eligible. And once they have that report, they start the application process. Initially, what we do is we start getting their documents ready for their education assessment, where they have to, it depends on the authority that they choose. It can take from 2 days to about 6 months, but I'll say an average of 1.5 months. And once they get that result, it's valid for 5 years. So that takes initially 2 months. Then they do an English language test in the second stage, which takes about a month maybe. British Council is the best one to do it, because you get your results in a couple of days. And then after that, you enter into the pool of candidates. That's what I can't tell clients, that how long can you be waiting for the invitation. You can be waiting for 2 weeks, you can be waiting for 6 months for an invitation. But as soon as you get an invitation to apply, your final stage takes about 4 to 5 months approximately. And
that English language test, is that done online, or where do you have to do that?
There's a paper-based and a computer-based test, and but you'll have to actually go to their register with British Council and get the test done there. They'll give you a particular date, and you'll need to get it done. But it's required, honestly, 2 months after you start your application.
Thanks for all of your votes in the current poll. The team here at Gulf News are working very hard. You probably can't see that just on the other side of the camera, there's a whole team of you working very hard, putting all the questions, getting everything together. The poll that we're working on this morning, or right now, the latest one is, are you well versed with Canada's points-based system for immigration? Are you well versed with Canada's points-based system for immigration? And 50% have said no. We've got 26% have said sort of, and 24% have actually, 25% now have actually said yes. So that goes to show you that, 1 in 4 people have actually done a bit of their own research. It must be a lot easier for you when someone comes into Y-Access, Clint, and you know that they've already done some homework themselves on the process. It must make it a lot easier to try and make everything as easy as possible.
It is. I think, what we normally do, it's easier if people had really shopped around, inquired around, because when they actually meet us and then we give them our advice and we tell them how it's actually done, and then they automatically know whether this one is experienced or not. So it makes our job much more easier when you speak to different immigration companies, and then you come to us, then you'll know exactly what we do, so it's much more easier.
Thanks for all of your questions that are coming in. We obviously can't get to all of them, but looking at some of the questions that we've got here, Sal wants to ask a question. Is there better provinces to apply to for certain jobs? Do you have that information? So if someone's a finance professional and they're looking for the express entry, which is something we should go over, do you know which provinces, regional provinces, need which type of employees in order to fast track their process?
So yeah, we do know each and every occupation has a different province that you can actually apply for. For example, if it's a finance professional right now, from the top of my head, I would think that he can apply for Prince Edward Island right now. If you're eligible, you make sure you apply for Prince Edward Island. If you can identify the correct occupation, Saskatchewan is another province that they can apply right now because they have 218 plus occupations which are in demand. He can apply for the city of Moden. There's a city in Manitoba called the city of Moden, which is open to apply right now. Just make sure you know how to file the applications so that you don't make any error, because you get only one chance. You make an error and then you automatically get rejected. But yeah, so there are these provinces which are open. If he has a friend or a family he applies for in Manitoba, he can apply for Manitoba as well. And plus they have different programs, the RNIP, the AIPP program, which again, remember, the reason I keep telling people this is that an immigration consultant doesn't have a big role to play, because with these programs you have to find a job, and no one can actually guarantee you a job, so avoid such companies. But your immigration agent should be able to give you the list of communities which are open and tell you to start applying for it till you get a job for these programs.
Okay, so that's some good advice for Sal, who's looking for some work there as a finance professional. Anil has just messaged, Clint, what do you think are the opportunities for doctors above the age of 50 to migrate to Canada?
The doctors is in demand. There's no doubt about it. Doctors are in demand in Canada. However, I don't know if you're going to meet the eligibility criteria, the initial eligibility criteria, because just going by what he said, if he's more than 50, then you don't get any points. Okay, your occupation is in demand. I'm assuming that your education is equivalent to a Canadian degree with MCC, that's the assessing authority. And with points-based system, you don't get any points in age. If you have a bachelor's, or assuming you have a master's degree, you get 23 points when it comes to master's. If you have about 6 years of work experience, you get 15. That takes you to 38 points. If you've done very well in your English language test, you get 24 points. That's 62. And if you're married, you get 5 additional points. That's 67. That's how you may qualify for it. But if you're not married, if you don't get enough English language score, then it automatically makes you ineligible to apply. So you may have to choose another route. I don't know if you want to do a business in Canada or anything else, but immigration may not be an option if you're not meeting the point system.
Maha sent through quite an interesting question. I'm living here in Dubai with my wife, who is a Canadian citizen and owns a business. Should I apply via express entry, or do you think spousal sponsorship would be the best way?
That's the best way. The spouse sponsorship is the best way. Why would you want to actually, if you're legally married and everything's in order, then apply for a settlement, a spouse visa, because you're going to be sitting in the express entry pool, and I don't know when you're going to get an invitation. So you might as well apply with your spouse being the as a spouse application.
Yeah, I think that makes great sense. Yeah, if you're married to a partner who's Canadian, you've got the inside lane there. Yasser says, how can we contact your company at Y-Axis Middle East if we're looking to get some more information and get started on the process?
I think the easiest way, we have over 5 offices in the UAE now, and we have offices all over the world. But the easiest way is go into the website, which is www.y-access.com or yaccess.ae. It'll come directly to our offices, or give us a call or send us an email to either dubai@y-access.com or sharjah@y-access.com, and an immigration consultant will call you back. The good thing is it's free to get advice. We don't really charge a consultation or anything else. And, get free advice, find out all your options, see if, speak to 10 different people, you'll know exactly whose genuine and who's not, and then you'll realize, whether you should go forward or not.
No, and with 5 locations, there should be one near you that you can contact. So that's excellent, that advice. Mimi has sent through a question, and I should say thank you very much for all of your questions. Please keep them coming. Mimi says, what can be done if our education degree is not equivalent to the Canadian degree?
So what you'll have to, if it's not equivalent, it's straightforward. I can't really do anything to change that. But, the eligibility criteria is these 3 requirements. If your education is equivalent, if you meet the points-based system, and if your occupation is in demand. So if you're lower, if your bachelor's degree is not recognized, if any other diploma is recognized as per Canada, you won't get 21 points when it comes to the points-based system. You'll get lesser points. However, with those lesser points, if you meet the 67 points, the number, and then you're eligible to apply. So you don't actually have to have a bachelor's degree. You can still apply with a diploma or anything else, and then find out what the equivalency is. Your education, anything that you've done, will be equivalent to either the secondary schooling or a diploma or a bachelor's or a master's or a PhD. So based on that, then we look at the points-based system.
Yeah, so the advice there, Clint, is don't get too worried about specifics like your degree. You've got to get to that 67. That's the goal, not essentially trying to make out, does my Bachelor of Science, that I've done in Pakistan, is that going to be the same as what it is in Canada? But I think there should also be up to the individual to do some sort of due diligence as well, and maybe understand that if they have done a Bachelor of Laws, that if they want to work as a lawyer, there might be further study to join the Law Society in Canada, and different examples for different industries. You may need to do local exams.
Yeah, what normally happens is the immigration authority is only giving you a visa to actually move there on a permanent residence. It's not, you're not sure to actually get a job. Yeah, you can't really get a job in that field. Like, for example, teachers in Alberta, although teachers can teach anywhere, you can't really work as a teacher in Alberta. You need a separate registration in Alberta. Like a lawyer, although you're eligible, you're a lawyer in your home country, you enter Canada, you're sitting in Canada, when you're trying to apply for a job, they'll expect you to do a registration, a test there to see if you're on as compared to a Canadian lawyer or not, if you know the laws and stuff like that. So, after you enter there is some studies that you have to do.
Parth has sent through a message. Hi, Clint and Kitch. We already have our Canada immigration profile. And the question they want to ask, there's so many coming through here. I need to go back up to the first one. As I said, thank you very much for all the messages that are coming through. Hi, we already have our Canada immigration profile, and with the CRS score of 457 points. Now, will there be any possibility that the overall CRS score cutoff score could come down?
It came down once a few years ago to 415 or 413, and those were the good old days. Post that, it's just been going up and it's not coming down at all. So I think, I honestly, if you ask my personal advice, if it was a friend or a family, I would tell them that I don't think it's going to come down,
Okay.
So you have to do much, much more while you're sitting in that pool to constantly explore every single option, that you can keep doing. And it's not just that you fill an application, you're in the pool, and you're expecting to be invited. Your immigration agent should be doing much, much more to increase your chance of success.
And for anyone who is just joining us, that CRS is the comprehensive ranking system. That is the score broken up into different sections with a different combination of points based on age, qualification, experience. And a lot of these very generic questions are coming through. People are asking, hey, I'm in occupational health and safety. Can I get a job in Canada? Oh, hey, I work in human resource. Can I get a job in Canada? One of the things that we're trying to let you know, and also with the work of Y-Axis Middle East, is that there's a number of criteria to get through. And the idea of getting a job is something different, and please correct me if I'm wrong here, Clint, than getting you 67 points, enabling you to get a visa to move to Canada to then have the right to work there.
I think, Kitch, a lot of people in the UAE, I think, must be asking that question because, in the UAE, the way we are right now is, I was in London before this. And then when I had to actually come to the UAE, they just told me that you have to have a company, you get a visa, and then you're sponsored and you come here. So a lot of people are in that same situation right now. But what they don't realize, countries like Australia, Canada, the UK, and all the other countries, if you have to get a job and move there, they have to do something called a labor market impact assessment, which is an LMIA. What that assessment is, there's an authority in Canada, which is the Employability and Social Development Authority in Canada. What they do is to take a foreign worker, they first have to advertise for about 3 months. So if there's the human resource guy and he wants to get a job in Canada, he's going to go to an employer. The employer has to first advertise for a couple of months, 2-3 months, prove that there's no Canadian that can actually fit that role. And that's why they're taking someone from overseas. Now, which you're expecting the employer to spend money on advertisement, you're expecting the employer to go to different authorities, pay the fees to get an approval. And normally, why would an employer do that when they can take someone locally? Unless your skills are you're exceptionally talented. That's why if you look at I tell most candidates, when you look at a job site, let it be in any country, you just Google Canadian jobs and you go to any job site in Canada, Australia, or anywhere else, the first question they ask you is, do you have work authorization? Now, the reason they ask you that is because as soon as you say no, the HR doesn't really want to bother about your profile. As soon as you say yes, that's when they take interest. They know it's free for me to recruit a candidate like this. So that's why I think most professionals choose the permanent residency way, because once they get their permanent residency, all those jobs that are available, they are clicking on yes. It's free for an employer. So chances of them getting interviewed are much, much more better than when they don't have a visa,
So you need to be mindful of that, yes, that it's much more about the process of getting the visa and that allows you to work. It's not like here in the UAE where your visa is attached to your employer, but there are benefits there that you can take on multiple jobs there and not having your employer upset. Clint, we've got another poll that's just come up. This is an interesting one. Where would you wish to settle down in Canada? Which region of Canada would you like to settle down the most? Or would you prefer Ontario, British Columbia, Quebec, great if you speak French, or somewhere else? Let us know on the list. Do you have any personal places, Clint, that you wouldn't mind settling down to?
I think maybe Vancouver for me at least, because of the weather and it's much better compared to all the other parts of Canada. But a lot of people, I think, want to get to Toronto. I think because that's the first choice. That's why if you see Ontario has 63%. So a lot of people want to go there because of job opportunities and things like that. But what people don't realize, because of that, the only reason why a lot of people want to, like, for example, you go to the UK, you want to settle down in London. You go to Australia, you want to
go to Sydney or Melbourne,
or Sydney, yeah. And same way with Canada, everyone wants to go to Toronto. And that's exactly why all these provinces have come up with occupations in demand, where they're inviting people to come in because they're shortfall of jobs, and they're shortfall of people to actually fill the jobs that they need. So I think a lot of people choose Toronto, but there are other, places that you can actually visit.
Yeah, look, I can speak from my experience living in Australia that everyone wants to move to Sydney's got 5 million people. It's a big city, and the regional areas are crying out for people to come be teachers and doctors and restaurant workers. And there's so many opportunities if you're looking to live in regional areas. And I think if COVID-19 has probably taught us anything, Clint, it's that those regional areas and those regional communities, you have a much better standard of living. We're connected to the big cities better than we've ever been before. And when you're in those smaller towns, you've got that sense of community for you and your family and your friends to grow up. And I think that, as I said, this year's taught us that I think that's more important for us, more important for families than it's ever been. Looking at more of the questions that are coming in, again, thank you so much. We're going to try and get to as many of these as we possibly can. An interesting one that's come through. Clint, good morning. My children are international students at the University of British Columbia in their final year. And what they really want to know is, as they do look to move, when they do start applying for the PR and further, does their previous stay as a student qualify for the same? So does studying in Canada give you a better chance of getting that 67 points than someone who studied overseas?
Yes, it does. Most likely, I think once they've studied there, they get additional bonus points. They can get up to 10 additional bonus points to actually settle down, to meet the 67 points. But what normally will happen in that particular applicant's case is that once you complete your education, you get a postgraduate work permit, and which allows you to work. If they've done a degree, they most likely will have a 3 years at least to actually work post their education. And after you working there for at least 1 year, you can apply. You don't apply under the federal skilled worker category. You can apply under a different category called the Canadian Experience Class category, and which is easier. Chances of them getting an invitation is much more faster.
Clint, how do you know all this? You've got an amazing amount of knowledge in every single part of Canada. Do you spend all nights reading all of this documentation? Because this is all just coming off the top of your head.
I think, we've been doing this for so long now. I've been doing it I worked with the Y-Axis in London for very long. I was in Melbourne for ages with Y-Axis in Australia. So we keep learning the immigration law. And one of the things that we can't do is give wrong advice, So I have to be up to date with everything about the law. There are some things I don't know as well, but
no, I don't believe that. I don't believe that. You know everything.
General questions, and I think those are the times I tell people that send us an email to one of our offices, and then we'll get back to you with some answers.
If you're just joining us, my name's Lachlan Kitchen, and you're part of the latest series of webinars here for Gulf News. We're speaking to Clint Khan, who is the director of Y-Axis Middle East, looking and trying to give you the best advice for everyone who is looking to move to Canada. We've been speaking about the points-based system, the comprehensive ranking system, and why your job needs to be in demand in regards to the eligibility criteria. A lot of questions are coming in regards to age, saying what is the appropriate age to migrate to Canada? Is 40 a suitable age, or do you think it really does depend on more your profession rather than your age?
It is. I think all three together, it's the occupation, it's the education, and it's the points-based system as well. So 40 is a good age, but you'll have to meet the other eligibility criteria to actually qualify.
A lot of people are sending through questions in regards to financial statements. Is there any requirement in regards to having to show financial statements? Is there a certain level of financial stability that you need to prove before moving to Canada?
After you actually get an invitation from Canada, assuming you're in the pool, you get an invitation to apply. At that stage, you need to, when you're paying your visa fee, you pay about 825 Canadian dollars for for a single applicant. And at that stage, you need to show them that you have enough funds to support yourself, where you'll have to show them, bank, like a savings account or a fixed deposit, or in your bank statement, approximately for a single applicant, it's around 12,300 or 12,500 Canadian dollars. And that's what you'll require to show.
And so that's it. Will you need an international bank account, or can you show your statements from your bank account here?
You can show any, as long as it's in your name or your spouse's name, is fine. And you can show liquid cash,
Okay, Clint, I've got a question here that might test you. Let's see how you go with this one. I'm 38 years old. I'm currently employed as a personal banker here in Dubai with 14 years experience in the same profession. What do you believe my chances of getting a PR would be, and which program is suitable based on my profile? Now, he says they can target the financial sales representative, but also my wife is 37 years old. She's an architect and interior designer with 7 years experience and currently employed as an interior designer. Should we apply as a single, or should we apply as a joint profile?
What normally happens is, from what he's saying, is that he's meeting the first requirement, the occupation in demand, because he knows his occupation 6235 and 5242, which is the spouse's occupation. And he meets the second requirement, which is the education. Most likely it's equivalent to a Canadian degree. And the third requirement, he's met the points-based system. From my experience, from what he's saying, his score is, or even his wife's score is around 330 or 340, approximately, their CRS score. So they are in the pool. They'll have to keep applying for different provinces that are open to apply. But what I would normally do if this is the case is I will use the husband as a main applicant and the spouse as the spouse, because his occupation code is different. And then I'll add his spouse. I'll create an additional profile with the spouse as the main applicant and the husband as a dependent, because that's her occupation. Her occupation is different as well. So they're trying both ways, and they're trying all possible options. So either one of them get an invite, the other can be independent.
If someone's looking to start up their own sort of business, a question's coming in from Shahid. What is the eligibility criteria for the startup visa program? Does each province have their own criteria? And does it change with fees between provinces too?
I see a lot of, because we are talking about the immigration program, I won't go much in detail, but yeah, the startup program is a visa. There's another program, which I think a lot of people in the UAE are talking about, a startup program, which is more like an investor category, where you invest money with either an angel investor or a venture capital firm. However, I don't know how you'll find the right firm. There are a lot of companies there in Canada who are doing this, and you'll have to find a genuine company somewhere where your investment that you do, either the 200,000 or the 75,000 Canadian dollars, is going to be safe and secured till you actually get a visa. So startup is an option. You can try it, but you'll have to choose who you're going to do it with. That's the biggest question, because of so many inexperienced consultants in the world. You don't know what your options are. There is another program. If you're a business person, you can start and open a business in Canada, which really you don't need much investment. However, you have to be a genuine business person. If you're a working professional and because you have the money, you're thinking of moving to Canada just to start a business, I don't know how far you'll actually get a visa.
The question has come in from Rennie. I'm already in the SINP pool. However, my score is only 63. Remember, it's that score of 67 that we're looking for. On the federal level, I have already tried through legally qualified consultants in Canada. What is the best way to improve your chances in regards to getting those points up?
So what happens, Kitch, is the federal skilled worker, the federal government has three programs, which is the federal skilled trades worker, the Canadian experience class, and the federal skilled worker program, which we are talking about, the federal skilled worker program. So that requirement is that 67. When he talks about the SINP, which is the Saskatchewan immigration program, they require, so each province, remember I said each province has their own eligibility criteria. And this particular province, their eligibility criteria is 60 points. So if you meet 60 points, you can enter into the pool of candidates for that particular province. And so he must be waiting in the pool at 63. The most recent draw, I think, was 69 or 70 is what they're getting drawn. But the only option for him is to actually be waiting in the pool, sit and keep waiting in the pool, look at, your CRS score. And I don't know what his CRS score is to tell him how he can increase that CRS score. However, keep looking at different things like, other provinces. I'm sure you applied for Prince Edward Island. I'm sure you applied for City of Modern as well, if you've done it through a reputed immigration company. And in addition to that, look at the communities. And with RNIP, there are 9 communities which are open. They should be able to, your immigration agent should be able to give you some links where you can start applying for jobs to those communities. They obviously can't guarantee you that. In addition to that, look at the New Brunswick. They have recruitment drives and things like that, where they can click on the thing and start, trying to increase his chance through those options.
Thanks for your votes that are coming through with the poll. The one we've been running at the moment, where would you most wish to settle down in Canada? Overwhelmingly Ontario, Canada, 63%, then followed by British Columbia, Quebec at 9%, and then also the results for another part of Canada would come through. So that goes to show you Ontario, Canada. I mean, it does have some very large cities, in regards to Toronto. But I think, as we've spoken about, if you are really keen to move to Canada, sometimes to get your points up, those regional areas would be best in regards to looking to get your visa application through. There's another poll that's starting now. How soon are you planning to file your PR application? Let us know your votes. How soon are you planning to file your PR application? 0 to 30 days, within the next 3 months, or within the next 6 months. When someone comes into Y-Axis Middle East and they want to have a chat to you, roughly what is the average time frame that you've found? Are people looking to move straight away, or are you having to advise them that, look, it might not be up to you, you might have to move when the opportunity arises?
I think what we normally do is we give them advice, give them free advice, tell them what their options are, if they're eligible or not. If they're eligible, yes, what their options are right now. But normally people do it immediately. People go ahead immediately if you're eligible. Because remember, at the back of the head, I think a lot of people need to realize that, you can be eligible now, but you can be ready 6 months later. You're not going to be ready. You're not going to be eligible at that time. There are so many different visa categories where, they were eligible 6 months ago. They're not eligible anymore. There are, for example, Nova Scotia. There was a province that came up a couple of months ago, and they've opened their applications only for 2 hours, and they've shut. And
Wow.
so if you're not in that pool waiting to check every single option, then it's always best to apply when you're eligible. Make sure you're eligible, apply, submit an application, and don't wait till you're ready.
Merlin has sent in, my wife is a nurse working in Dubai. She's been here for 8 years. We have a CRS score of 325, already profile in the express entry pool. What are all the streams that we could migrate to Canada to make it to Canada easily? Is it really the only two, sort of the normal one and the express pool? How many streams are available?
So you can apply under the express entry pool. Simultaneously, you apply under. So it goes like this: your first priority is the express entry pool. Your second priority is start applying for jobs and try and see if you can get a job option. Your third priority is to start applying for different provinces which you are eligible to apply. In fact, I had a client just the other day who's got an invitation for a nurse. She works for a nurse in one of the big hospitals here, and she's got an invitation from Alberta. And Alberta selected nurses, and then start applying for provinces. That's the third thing that she should do. And then the fourth thing is start applying for all the pilot programs, which is the rural and northern immigration program, because I know for a fact they need nurses there. I've seen a lot of jobs. I can't do much to help. I can only share the links with you, and then you can start applying. Or the Atlantic immigration program, where they don't need really a labor market test, and try and get a job and move there.
Well, yeah, Alberta is one of the most beautiful places on earth. I think that would be a wonderful place to live. Shone has asked, can I apply for both Canada and Australia at the one time? Countries don't really look down upon you making multiple applications, do they?
They wouldn't really know, because you apply for these. You can apply. The good thing about these immigration applications is you can be any part of the world. Everything is online. So right now we sit here. We help people in the US. We help people in Germany, in Europe, all the other countries, and we can do the application while they're from a different country. So you can file for both countries. With Canada's very different, Australia's totally different, and the selection process, the eligibility criteria, it is. But yes, just to answer his question, he can apply for both the countries at the same time as well. Whichever one you get, you move.
We've spoken a few times about if something's too good to be true when it comes to an immigration officer, it most likely is. Angelo says, how am I supposed to know that the agent is approved by the Canadian Immigration Service?
So the easiest way because I know you're not going to remember all the things, the easiest way is go to Google and search for RCIC consultants. And you go and search for RCIC consultants, and you'll get the official website, which is iccrc-crcic.ca. And in that particular website, you have a list of regulated Canadian immigration consultants. You either put the company's name in the agent last name. They have something called an agent's last name, and you put the company name there, or you put the company name in you put the company name in their company name field, and you'll automatically know which agent is actually regulated, who's not.
And what's the best one? One of the questions that Bilal has asked us, but we've touched on this a few times, but I think we should go over it. Do Y-Axis Middle East help connect with recruitment agencies in Canada, or somehow help landing interviews? No, not really, because the job is to get the visa, to get your residency, and then it's really up to you to try and find the role that best suits you.
Yeah, like I was looking at one particular post the other day, and I don't want to name the consultant, but they're talking about guaranteed job. How can you guarantee someone a job? And I can't really do that. I wish I could guarantee someone a job, but the most I could do is share you links where you can start applying for jobs, and then it's I think their headache to actually get the interview, get selected, negotiate with the employer and things like that. I can't even guarantee someone a response, for a job, because it's up to an employer, HR. And I know of hundreds of consultants in the UAE who tell them that we will get you a job,
And that's not fair. That's not quite right.
It's not fair. I think a smart person would automatically know that no one can actually get you a job. It's about the employer and my application, and it's up to them who actually do it. So it's not really in our hands to get you a job. Yes, I can. You have employers who can market your CV. If I tell you, yes, I'll market your CV and help you, I'll just do a marketing where I send it to employers there. But if I'm going to tell you, I guarantee a response, I guarantee a job, then that's not fair, I think.
Question that's come through. So if the score doesn't come down and you don't get an invite for a year, despite trying everything with the immigration companies, does this mean you have to does this mean you have to let go of your dream of going to Canada? It would probably seem that in those sort of situations, more research is needed to be done about, can you upskill? Are there certain areas? Is it just that this year your job's not as in demand as it might be the following year? Is that the
That's
best
true.
advice?
Yeah. I think, if he's eligible and if he's sitting in the pool, you start exploring different things. So if this particular applicant, the score doesn't come down, I'm assuming he's done his education assessment already. So your education assessment is valid for 5 years. You enter into the pool of candidates, which is the express entry pool. You haven't really paid a fee to do that. You've entered in the pool, you sat for a year. You have to do different things to increase your chance of success. And once you do that, then you realize that a year later, I didn't get an invitation. Reapply and get into the pool again, because you're not spending any money. So keep doing that to actually get into the pool and start exploring different options. Like, for example, Saskatchewan, if you look at last year, in mid last year, people would have thought only 19 occupations are eligible and no one else can apply. September, they've increased it to 211 occupations. So all those ones who were not eligible, they've reopened and they started applying. So you just have to keep being in the pool and increase your chance, and start doing things to increase your chance of success. Don't let go of the dream unless you waited for a few years at least.
No, that's it. Someone who never gives up can't be beaten. That's the old saying. You've just got to keep on trying.
True.
Mohammed says, well, we had applied for Canada immigration through express entry. My score for CRS is 344, and they're obviously looking at that occupation 1241 administrative assistant visa. I've got experience 4.5 years, 4+ years. My case in PNP has been lodged with Prince Edward Island with a score of 62. Now, if someone who's clearly, they've done a bit of work, they've got their score, they're looking at what visa they want to do, and then they come into your office, Clint, what is the best thing an immigration officer like you at Y-Access Middle East can help get you through that last hurdle to get PR?
I would do two things. Normally, I'll take their express entry login details, and I'll first check if they've done everything themselves, if they've done it right. To come to a score of 344, I've seen a lot of cases where I've taken the details, they've done it through another agent, and when you actually open the application form and you check, and in one of the questions it asks you is, did you do your application through a registered agent? And they click on no, although they've paid someone to do it, And so I'll initially take up the application, look and see if they've filled everything right. If they've applied for Prince Edward Island, now this particular application, I would see if he has anything else. If he's applied for the Saskatchewan, if that's an option right now. I'll look at the city of Modern. You can, although your occupation may not come under the high priority list for the city of Modern, you can still apply irrespective of your occupation, and it's up to them if they select your application. I'll check if he has a friend or family in Canada to apply with the commitment letter, a settlement letter for Manitoba. I will give him different links to actually look at in terms of RNIP, AIPP, and then if he's done every single thing, then I'll tell him to just wait and have the patience.
Yeah, well, I tell you, from speaking to you, Clint, today, I'd be confident in knowing if you couldn't get me those last couple of points, that no one else could. Thank you for all of your questions that are coming through. Ali says, with express entry scores being very high, it's almost impossible for someone with a bachelor's degree to get in through express entry. Have you found that to be true? What are some of the areas to work on to improve the comprehensive, the CSR score? CRS score, rather.
Like I said, in the initial topic when we discussed the selection process, now the express entry score, an average person, like even the previous person, like Mohammed, who was before, he got a score of 344. There are more than 65 to 70,000 people ahead of Mohammed. When they actually do an invitation, if you look at the recent invites, they've got around 3,900 people got invites every draw that they've actually think. So even if your score is a score of 475, and tomorrow they have a draw, you don't know if there are 61,000 people ahead of you who are going to get it before you. So it is very, very difficult to actually meet that criteria. Although even if I give him an option of saying, do an English language test, get higher points in an English language, it's never ever going to take you past the 478 or 500 or 550. Or even if I tell them go and do a master's degree, come back a year later, with your master's degree, you're not going to get a bonus of 100 points, or you're not going to jump up to 500 plus. So while you're waiting in the pool, it's sad, but you have to still keep doing different things to increase your chance of success. It's very difficult to act. If you're sitting in the pool and depending that I'm only going to wait for the federal government to select me from the pool, you can be waiting for a few years.
Yeah, no. I think that you've got to show a bit of nous, and you've got to start working and trying to work that system best for you, and never stop challenging it. The results on the poll we were running 15 minutes ago: how soon are you planning to file your PR application? The results fairly evenly split between the three: within the next 30 days, within the next 3 months, or within the next 6 months. I do like that. Within the next 6 months, there's someone showing a bit of planning, getting all the documentation ahead, working out. We're currently running through our final poll as we come to the end of today's webinar. Why did you decide to attend this event? I want to migrate to Canada. I'm looking to explore some new opportunities, and also my visa is currently expiring here in the UAE, so I'm looking for that. Going through some of those basics again, Clint. With anyone who is still looking to migrate to Canada, remember there's those three attributes of your occupation needs to be in demand, education should be equivalent to that of a Canadian degree, and there's also this points-based system where you need to meet the 67 points based on age, qualification, experience, language, and also your spouse skills. One thing we haven't really touched on is this express visa. How does this differ? Do you still need the same scores if you're looking at the express, or do you need to have a higher score in order to get through?
So what prior to 2015, what they used to do is, you meet the requirements to apply, you get your entire file ready, take your documents and courier to Canada, and you never know when the application actually gets picked up. Post 2015, they've introduced something called an express entry, which is it's more done to fast track applications, to get it more organized. Everything is online and things like that. To enter in the express entry, this particular program, express entry, there are only 3 programs, which is one is the Federal Skilled Trades Program. It's for people who have a job offer and things like that, for the trades category. There's one experience class with people who are already experienced in Canada. And the third one is the Federal Skilled Worker category. Now, under the Federal Skilled Worker category, to actually enter into the express entry and wait there, you'll have to meet those 3 criteria: the occupation in demand, the education, and the points-based system.
We're just getting to wrapping up today's webinar. If you still want to get your last questions in for Clint, the Director of Y-Axis Middle East, please send through those questions now. We'll maybe just try and squeeze 1 or 2 that are coming in. Latif has actually sent through a lovely message saying, I want to thank a million to Mr. Clint Khan and Y-Axis for all of your fruitful knowledge. So you've already got one fan there, Clint. So thank you very much for being so helpful. As we look at the final poll that is currently running, why did you decide to attend this event? No surprises, 78% have said they want to migrate to Canada. And I mean, that's something we touched on earlier on. Despite all of the points and the jobs and all of the logistics that go through, it's an incredible country. It's got some of the most beautiful countryside, from the Rocky Mountains to some of the big, beautiful cities, to a great quality of life. The standard of living is exceptionally high from Canada. Do you find it to be one of the most in-demand countries that people are looking to move to?
I think from what we've seen over the last few years, I think Canada is most in demand. I think compared to Australia, I think a lot of people move to Canada. And I think even the US, with the current situation, the US now, there's been a huge increase in the number of people who want to move from the US to Canada, because there's a huge demand, with all thanks to Trump. But I think what all they're doing and the visa restrictions and things like that, I think a lot of people are looking at the Canadian immigration more compared to any other country in the world.
Aditi sent through a message. How long do you need to have studied in Canada for to be able to apply for permanent residency? It'd probably be a case if you needed to finish your degree, wouldn't it?
You can still apply now. Assuming I go to Canada now on a student visa, and I meet my requirements of the express entry, the federal skilled worker category, and if I can be in the pool to apply for waiting for an invitation, and I simultaneously start applying for a study visa, and I'm studying in Canada, you can only claim your bonus points after you finished your degree. And in her case, but in Aditi's case, I think if she studied in Canada for at least a year, she gets a postgraduate work permit. And after that, if she worked for at least a year, she can file her application not under the federal skilled worker category, but under the experience class category.
Okay. So there are different levels of categories there, which is always one of the best reasons why you should see an immigration consultant, much like yourself at Y-Axis in Middle East. I've actually had quite a few questions that have come through from people asking in regards to human resource and OH&F professionals, asking if these are in demand. Again, you know, I guess it depends on the province. Each province does have different demands of what they're looking for within skilled labour.
I think recruitment consultant and human resource advisors and managers are in demand in Canada. They come under the occupation list, which is in demand, and there is an occupation in demand. See, I can tell you the occupation in demand, but at the end of the day, I'll be giving them a list of roles and responsibilities. They'll need to read it and see if they've performed that particular role. Although I know human resource, I'm not a human resource consultant, so I wouldn't really know their exact roles and responsibilities, but we give them a sample list of roles and responsibilities for them to read it, understand, yes, you've been performing the role, or no, I haven't been performing the role. Worst case scenario, you're not performing the role, you're not eligible to apply.
Well, Clint, I am going to consider you now my Yoda when it comes to immigration, given how much you know. You seem to know it all and every fact and every facet in regards to immigration, certainly because of your experience, but also the experience of Y-Axis Middle East. For anyone who's heard you speak today, you know, they're in the middle of the process, they might be starting out the process. What is the best way to get in contact with you to further their application?
I think what they can do is go to our official website, which is y-axis.ae. I know a lot of people are from other places in the world. They can either go to y-axis.com or y-axis.ae, or send us an email to dubai@y-axis.com or sharjah@y-axis.com.
Yeah, because you do have 5 locations, so there's somewhere, you know, that's got to be close to you in the UAE. Canada is an extraordinarily amazing place. I've never been there, but my auntie's Canadian and so many friends have been there, and they all say the same thing, Clint. You've never had real maple syrup until you've been to Canada. You need to enjoy it when you go. Hey, Clint, thank you very much for joining us today. You've been a remarkable insight into the immigration process, and thank you to everyone here who has been working hard behind the scenes here at Gulf News, making this webinar another success. There'll be more webinars down the track, so make sure you keep an eye out on the website. I'm Lachlan Kitchen, and thank you very much for joining us this afternoon for today's webinar. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you.